Two suicide bombs in Israel tonight leave the peace plan in tatters. The Blair-Brown double act to win over the unions. New hope for smokers, the jab that can help you quit.
I thought brilliant. No patches, no struggling. I thought that'll be great.
And why Beckham wants England fans to stay at home.
The ITV News at 10 with Trevor MacDonald.
Good evening. The roadmap to peace in the Middle East was blown apart today by two devastating explosions. First in Tel Aviv earlier this evening, and then tonight in Jerusalem. Both were the work of suicide bombers, and at least 10 Israelis have been killed. 6 died queuing for a bus outside a Tel Aviv army base. 4 were killed in tonight's explosion at a cafe in West Jerusalem. Let's go now to Bill Neely, who is in Jerusalem tonight. Bill?
Well, I've just come from the scene of the latest explosion, the second in just hours, targeting Israel's 2 main cities. Multiple casualties, terrible scenes down there, ambulances still screaming through the streets of Jerusalem. The suicide bombers are back. A West Jerusalem cafe, a popular night spot, packed tonight. A perfect place for a Palestinian bomber and a deadly outcome. The Hilal Cafe was full, the security guard on the door when a young man approached. The guard challenged him at the entrance. The man blew himself up, killing at least 4 and injuring dozens. Most of the casualties are teenagers. All day here, we've been waiting for something like this. The security forces warned that a suicide bomber was on his way to Jerusalem, but they didn't know exactly where, and neither did we or anyone.
How was it? What was it?
Tonight, 4 more people paid the price for a peace that is dying quickly. The second blow in 6 hours. The target this time an army camp, the victims numerous, the bomber ending any lingering optimism here. Eyewitnesses say he was dressed in uniform and approached the camp, one of the biggest in Israel, as dozens of soldiers were leaving. The troops had gathered together to hitchhike home. The bomber blended in and then blew himself up. All this is proof again that nowhere, not even a road by an army camp with everyone on high alert, is ever wholly safe. And that's the message Palestinian militants want to send after Israel tried to kill one of their top leaders. Israeli soldiers were busy elsewhere, trapping 2 Palestinian men in a block of flats. They exchanged gunfire for a while, and then a tank ended it. The 2 men died. A 12-year-old boy was killed by shrapnel, and so it goes on. The hopes of the early summer, dead.
Bill, tragically, we've been here before, but surely we're now nearing the end of any hope for this roadmap to peace.
I think the roadmap really is at a dead end. These 2 bombings today have been claimed by the militant Palestinian group Hamas. Israel, of course, tried to kill their founder and spiritual leader at the weekend. Today is Hamas's revenge, but Israel, of course, has pledged to kill all Hamas's leaders, so Israel will take its revenge in the coming days. I think the political process is all but dead, with Israeli and militant Palestinian leaders now threatening to kill each other. The US says there's still life in the peace process, still life in the roadmap. Very, very few people here believe that. And tonight, Trevor, here in Jerusalem and indeed all over the West Bank and Israel, people are simply braced for more.
Bill Neely, thank you. In private and in public, the government squared up to the unions today as their leaders pile on the pressure for key policy changes. At a private dinner tonight, the Prime Minister is telling union leaders not to rock the boat over foundation hospitals, pensions or Iraq. In public at the TUC conference, Gordon Brown tried a different tack. He said he wanted to work with the unions in partnership. The unions sensed that with government popularity slipping, they now have a chance to flex their muscles. Let's go to Brighton now to join Nick Robinson. Nick?
Here at the TUC, union leaders have criticised his policies. They've even called on him to resign. But Tony Blair tonight had a simple message for them. You're deluding yourself, he told them over dinner. If you believe by undermining me, you'll end up with a left-wing Labour government. You will, he said, end up with the Tories instead. Side by side tonight, the odd couple of British politics, the two halves of the Labour movement, the politicians and the unions, unhappy with each other, yet unwilling to divorce. They dine together in private, but this is the public message Tony Blair wants to convey.
We've got to govern for the whole of the country, and though of course we can listen and we can consult those in the trade union movement, we've never got to confuse that with doing the job of government.
And yet the new General Secretary of the TUC and the Chancellor made plain today they see eye to eye on the need to repair a damaged relationship, as Gordon Brown said again and again and again.
We want to work with you. We want to work with you. We want to work with you also, so that workers can benefit from the next major challenge.
There were, he admitted, real differences on how to reform the public services, but
it is because we are all committed to one aim, world-class public services for Britain, that we should resolve to work together to settle these issues, not through headlines and conflict, but through dialogue and discussion.
That dialogue and discussion, however, would only go so far.
I tell you honestly, there can be no return to inflationary pay rises. There can be no return to loss-making subsidies that prevent the best long-term decisions for Britain. There can be no resort to legislation from Europe or elsewhere that would risk jobs.
A clear message to the awkward squad of new union leaders. So what was their reaction to him?
Well, we would say it's the same meat but different gravy. The reality of life is still going to privatise public services. We're still going to have foundation hospitals.
Last night he called on Tony Blair to resign.
There's no doubt that the Chancellor has listened. Our argument has been that the government's not been listening to us. Working together to win for our country, for our people, is exactly what we want to hear.
Wooed by the Chancellor, but attacked for their delusions by the Prime Minister. As Tony Blair leaves the TUC tonight, Labour's turbulent marriage to the unions is very far from off the rocks. I've just been handed the menu for tonight's dinner. Inside it tells us the wine they serve. Winds of Change Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm not making it up. They're optimists here at the TUC.
Nick Robinson, thank you. Now here's a question. To how many people have you given your credit card number today? And do you have any way of checking how they used it? The fact is you don't. And today a computer expert was jailed for 9 years for Britain's biggest credit card fraud. He simply copied the credit card details from 9,000 people who'd bought train tickets. Here's Harry Smith.
Driven off to start a 9-year jail sentence for fraud, the man behind the country's biggest credit card scam. 26-year-old Sunil Matani worked for a company which processed credit card payments for one of Britain's busiest rail lines. He used this position of trust to download details stored on the card. The copies then made were good enough to defraud the banking system of £2 million. It all adds up to Britain's biggest ever credit card fraud, but it could have been so much bigger. By the time the gang were arrested, they'd downloaded the details of so many cards, they could have got away with nearly £20 million. This is how the scam worked. It began with passengers using their credit cards to buy tickets on the Heathrow Express train service. Their details were processed by a firm called Checkline, where Matani worked. He copied the information from the magnetic stripes on the cards and passed it on to his accomplices. They made cloned cards and went on a shopping spree in Europe, buying alcohol and cigarettes. They smuggled these back to Britain and sold them here. One computer expert showed me a website where anyone could buy the equipment needed to clone credit cards.
You can find plenty of websites that will deliver the goods to you just by using a regular search engine. What you will get from it are the card encoder, decoder, that'll do the mag stripe part of it. You'll be able to buy the blank plastic cards, you'll be able to buy the specialist printer and the specialist embosser. That's all you need.
The industry admits card fraud is a big problem, but says it's introducing new smart cards with microchips and PIN numbers to beat the fraudsters. Harry Smith, ITV News.
A patient suffering from multiple sclerosis who wants to be cared for at home is locked in a distressing dispute with her local authority who want to send her to hospital. Lorraine Woolstenholme is forced to sleep in her wheelchair at night because the nurses who treat her have been told not to lift her into bed. Paul Davis has her story.
Her case has been described as a national scandal. Lorraine Woolstenholme has been forced to sleep in her wheelchair for 14 months now because her local health authorities say it's too dangerous for nurses to lift her into bed.
I can't believe it's 2003. You know, does no common sense prevail? I'm not 25, 30, 40 stones. It's as if the patient, if the carers and the nurses have more rights than I do.
The local NHS trust at Milton Keynes say it's not as simple as that. Lorraine weighs just 8.5 stone, but as a symptom of her multiple sclerosis, she suffers muscle spasms, and 3 nurses have been injured lifting her. She's also refused treatment they've recommended.
The weight of the lady is not the issue. This is more complex than that. It's actually about the spasms that Mrs. Woolstenholme does suffer with. We have recommended that she take some medication for that, but she has refused, which is her right.
While patient and health authority disagree, it's left to Lorraine's daughter Karen to help her mother to the bathroom and toilet, though she's not strong enough to lift her into bed.
You know, I mean, they're saying they need 2 to 3 carers to move my mum, and yet they've left me all this time to try and sort of struggle on my own.
This is a particularly sensitive and emotive case, highlighting not only Lorraine Woolstenholme's desire to live as normal a life as possible here at her own home, but also a disabled person's right to have and to refuse medical treatment, balanced with the NHS's right to do what it thinks is best for us. Lorraine Woolstenholme's case is now being considered at the High Court, where a judge yesterday expressed his regret and amazement that it has come to this. Paul Davis, ITV News, Milton Keynes.
There's more to come on News at 10 tonight, including revolutionary new help for smokers who want to give up, and the England captain's warning to fans about Turkey.
I think, you know, it's going to be a volatile atmosphere, and we definitely don't want anyone getting hurt.
We'll have all that and more when we come back. Two-thirds of all smokers say they'd like to kick the habit, and a simple injection to help them do that may now be at hand. The vaccination will stop nicotine reaching the brain and so reduce the craving for more. But will it do better than the other cures? Here's our medical editor, Lawrence McGinty.
Smoking is disgusting and damages your health. Smokers know that, yet they can't stop. Less than a third are successful in giving up. So the prospect of a vaccine that could help smokers kick the habit has excited anti-smoking groups, even though it's still in its early stages.
Potentially the vaccine could be useful for all smokers, but I think it might be especially useful for people who are at risk of relapsing, and that usually tends to be the very heavy smokers.
So how would the new vaccine work? When a smoker inhales from a cigarette, the tiny nicotine molecules go undetected by the immune system and straight into the brain, giving the smoker a nicotine hit. The new vaccine, which smokers would inject, works by attaching these small orange-coloured nicotine molecules to the cholera toxin molecules. Now it's bigger and twice as toxic. When these bigger molecules try to enter the body, the immune system reacts by producing antibodies for both the cholera and the nicotine. So when a vaccinated smoker inhales, the antibodies recognize the nicotine and protect the brain. The nicotine can't get inside, and the smoker doesn't get the reward of a nicotine hit. Smokers we asked were enthusiastic. Judith has smoked 40 a day for 50 years.
Well, I thought it was excellent, because I've been meaning to give up cigarettes for ages, and I should. So I thought, brilliant. No patches, no struggling. I thought that'll be great.
Other smokers said the vaccine might not be popular. Wayne has smoked 15 a day for 8 years.
I think it's a good thing, but I think people will be too scared to give up their addiction, so I don't see them queuing outside the clinics to get the injection.
At least not yet. Scientists say it will take about 3 years for trials to show the vaccine actually works in practice. Lawrence McGinty, ITV News.
David Beckham and the rest of the England team play Liechtenstein tomorrow, but all the talk today was about their match against Turkey next month. Beckham gave a somewhat half-hearted warning to England fans to stay away. And when our sports editor Tim Ewart asked him whether he'd celebrate again in front of any fans who do turn up, he said he probably would.
The spotlight is now firmly on England's potentially explosive visit to Turkey next month. The FA aren't selling tickets and have told fans to stay away. But that didn't work in the Macedonian capital Skopje at the weekend. Controversially, David Beckham and his teammates applauded travelling fans there.
Do you have any advice for England fans who are thinking of going to the Turkey match?
It's going to be a volatile atmosphere, and we definitely don't want anyone getting hurt, and it's nothing against Turkey as a country, because it is a beautiful country and there's beautiful people over there, but you know, things can get heated and we definitely don't want anyone getting hurt, so you know, if the message is to stay away, then maybe they should listen.
And if there are fans there, will you go over to them as you did in Skopje?
When you see your own fans, you go and celebrate to them. I think that's only natural, and it'll probably be the same wherever we play.
This is the atmosphere England can expect in Turkey. 2 Leeds United supporters were killed here 3 years ago. And Turkish fans have repeatedly been involved in violent clashes at home and away. 2 Manchester United players were attacked by Turkish riot police 10 years ago, and it's happened to others as well.
Every time I play there, I come away with the same feeling. It's a very dangerous place, not only for supporters, not only for players. I think even officials have to be very, very careful there.
Assuming England get 3 points against Liechtenstein here at Old Trafford tomorrow, they'll go to Turkey needing only a draw. But their determination and their composure will be tested to the limit. Tim Hewitt, ITV News, Manchester.
And finally, one of the pop industry's most prestigious prizes, the Mercury Music Award, has been won by a little-known 18-year-old garage star. Dizzy Rascal beat off competition from more famous artists like Radiohead and Coldplay. I'm afraid I prefer Neil Diamond myself, but join me again if you can in a few moments for a reminder of tonight's headlines. Before that, though, it's time to hand you over to my ITV colleagues in your part of the country.